Thank you so much for listening to Breadwinning Mums. We really appreciate your continued support over the last year, and we're happy to announce that we have published the Breadwinning Mums book. Yay! This book is based on the conversations from the Breadwinning Mums Season 1 episodes. It highlights the candid journeys of each mums, as well as a golden nugget of wisdom from their life's lessons. Now is the perfect time to give the gift of the Breadwinning Mums book to the special mums in your life or to yourself. No matter where you are in life, I'm sure the practical tips within the Breadwinning Mums book will help you take your lives just a little bit further. Limited copies available, so order yours now at breadwinningmums.com. That's breadwinningmums.com. Coming up next on the Breadwinning Mums.
You are enough, and you know enough. And if you don't know something, that's fine, because you are resourceful and you can find out the answers and you can learn how to be better at it. So, and that's a challenge that I guess I had to overcome quite a lot over my career as well, because I always felt like, I didn't know enough, that someone else was better than me. And I think that comparison trap, comparing yourselves to other people's successes and achievements, it's really something that I would say, please don't do that.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Breadwinning Mums podcast. This is a place where we debunk the myths of working mums, cheer each other on, and show the world that it's okay to be a mum and still pursue excellence in your chosen area of expertise. Today we're chatting with Dr. Chloe Lim, who is the founder, director, and science storyteller at Twisty Science, a senior regulatory scientist at the Department of Health and Aged Care, and the founder and balloon artist at Giggly Wiggly Balloons. Chloe shared with us her life story about carving her own path as a young woman from Malaysia, finding and securing scholarships in New Zealand and Australia, before settling down in Canberra with her family as a culturally and linguistically diverse migrant woman. Here we go with Dr. Chloe Lim. Hello, Dr. Chloe Lim. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'd love to be on your show.
It's such a pleasure. So, Chloe, obviously, this is the first time we have this conversation. For myself and for those listening, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Malaysia, and I grew up in Kuala Lumpur with my family of 6 of us in total.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I'm the eldest of 4 siblings. I have 2 younger brothers and 1 younger sister. And I moved overseas to study my undergraduate degree, which was a bachelor's of medical science. So I was very fortunate. I got a scholarship to go to New Zealand, and I studied in Victoria University of Wellington. And then I did my further studies in honors as an honors in medical science in the Australian National University. So moving over to Australia now. And I couldn't stay on in Australia to work. And so I had to go back to Malaysia. But I found a job in Singapore, and I worked in Singapore at the National Neuroscience Institute as a research assistant. But Australia beckons me back because I managed to get a PhD scholarship in medical science. So I moved back to Australia, back to Canberra, where I am now. And I did my PhD there for about 3.5 years and stayed on and settled down there. So that was kind of like my academic life. I did stay on to become a medical researcher as well. So I was looking at epigenetics in the immune system, looking at how genes are switched on or switched off, depending on the type of stimulus that you provided. And I had the opportunity to work with a biotech startup as a clinical trials coordinator. And I set up a clinical trial for metastatic breast cancer patients. Now, that was my academic life. I decided that I had enough of academic life, and then I decided to move into government. So I'm currently working in government as a public servant, and I'm still using my scientific skills as a regulatory scientist. Now, on top of that, now I do have my corporate career, but I also have a business. I have businesses on the side. I'm an entrepreneur as well. So I have a party entertainment service specializing in balloon twisting called Giggly Wiggly Balloons. I'm also a Maxwell Leadership trained speaker and coach. And I recently started a new company, a science education company called Twistific, where I merge my love for science and balloons together to create fun shows and learning experiences for children. And on top of that, I know that we're on a podcast where we're talking about mums.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I need to tell you a little bit about my family. So yeah, I'm married to another scientist. So we are a bit of a scientist family. We love our science. And I have three children. My son is 9, turning 10 actually next month, or this month actually, this month. And I have twin girls who are turning 8 this year. So it was a bit full on when they were all under 3. I had 3 under 3 at one point,
Yeah. Wow.
and that
That's
was just
crazy.
nuts.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
by the
yes.
sound of things, it sounds like you have quite a lot on your plate, even now, still.
Yes, I do. I think I'm one of those people who needs to have lots of things going on. If not, I get bored or I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, either I overthink things and start thinking too much about negative things or whatever. I don't know. But I just need to have stuff going on. Yeah, just
Yeah.
to keep me on my toes.
Yeah. You're a high energy, high frequency person, and you love to create and to give a lot of positive vibes into the world, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what we need, right? There's so much negativity in this world. We need to
Mm,
have that positive light and
mm,
shine brightly for others as well, so that you can help others feel like they themselves can also shine too.
interesting. I want to go back to that really young Chloe when you were just about to leave Malaysia. Was it just yourself, and what was going through your mind then?
Yeah, no, so growing up, I've always had the dream of moving overseas and studying overseas. I think there's that perception, in Malaysia that the education system, the university education, is not as good as what is available overseas. And
Mm,
so for me, I've always wanted to study overseas so that I can get the best opportunity, the best education. So I was very studious, like I studied a lot. I spent a lot of times reading and doing maths and all those things. So I was very science focused as well, even as a young Chloe. And for me, I guess I was really excited with the prospect of just doing something different, going to a different country and learning their culture, learning how things work there. And so for me, it's when I got the opportunity, the scholarship, to be able to go overseas, I was just really ecstatic and really excited. It was
mm.
it was also, I guess, well, how do you say? It would be an experience where someone might find it a little bit terrifying because it would have been my first time going overseas on my own. I didn't go with anyone else from the family. And I didn't know anyone in New Zealand except for my best friend. Thankfully, my best friend went there too. And we went to the same university, which is nice. But I didn't go with anyone. And it was the first time I flew on a plane, the first time I, go to a foreign country and live there.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, but I think my desire to want to study overseas was so great that I didn't really think about all those potential challenges or barriers that I might face living overseas.
Yeah. How did your parents take it though?
Oh, they were very happy for me because they know that's what
Very
I wanted
supportive.
to do. And,
Yeah.
and the reason why I guess I worked so hard was because I knew that they wouldn't be able to afford to send me overseas. So I needed to be able to get scholarships. So being able to have, it was a full scholarship where they covered all the stipend, like
Oh.
the tuition fees,
Mm,
and they even gave me some allowance as well. So it was a
mm,
really good scholarship, which allowed me to
mm,
live overseas and
mm.
study without having to worry about the financial burden.
Yep. That's awesome.
Mm.
Were your parents academics as well?
No, no, my parents were not academics. So my dad an engineer working in a factory before, and then he moved into running the family business. So the family had a little grocery store in the city. My mom gave up her work in order to take care of us children. So she
Mm.
was a stay-at-home mom for a lot of our early childhood
Yep.
till we all grew up.
Yeah. And how was your relationship with your siblings? I'm one of four as well. I've got two older brothers and one younger, so it's quite manic. But I imagine, excuse me, being the oldest daughter, you were quite responsible for the younger siblings.
Yes, yes, there was quite a big age gap between me and my siblings. So, like, let me see, there's about 6, 8, and 11 years age gap.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, yeah. So
So
I
you
was,
were the first one for about 6 years. You
yes,
had your
yes.
parents to yourself. And
Yeah,
then,
so I
yeah.
was I was the oldest and definitely old enough to take care of my siblings as well. And I mean, I loved it actually. I loved being a big sister, and I think there's that bit in me where I just love to take care of people. And especially when my sister came along, I mean, 11 years difference. I was already a teenager.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had a little baby, yeah, that I could take care of. And yeah, and I love being a big sister and being able to take care of my siblings.
yeah. And I can see that going on through your work now.
Yeah, no, I think it's something about being able to give back because when I was growing up, if you're thinking about if I were to touch on, for example, just getting role models in science, there's actually not a lot of role models available to me when I was growing up, or mentors, in particular that can guide me in terms of my career choices or life choices. And so for me, it was important that I'm able to help others
Mm,
with their own life choices or with their career choices because of
mm,
all the things that I've learned for myself. And a lot of times people don't realize having that extra help really makes a huge difference. And
yeah.
so that's why I do a lot of volunteer mentoring and coaching so that
Mm,
other people don't have to start from ground zero in a way. They can start
yeah.
from a place where they have a little bit more awareness and a little bit more information, that they can use to propel themselves even further and faster.
Yeah. And I really love that you are out there as well, because sometimes as a kid, you can't really become what you don't see. So being a woman of a different culture in a predominantly male dominated
Mm.
industry is telling the little ones that they can become, who you are now.
Yes, absolutely. They talk about, see it to be it,
Yeah.
and importance of visibility and representation as
Yeah.
well in any area. Like, especially, I think it's also very important to have that representation in the media as well, because
Yeah.
you probably don't see as much,
Yeah.
Asian people on TV or listening to them on radio. And for me, I also have a migrant background, and I know that I speak in a slightly different accent from an Aussie, for example, and to be able to showcase to them that you as an Asian migrant, you can be successful in any endeavor that you put your mind to it. But it
Yeah.
also is important for you to showcase yourself and to shout out to the rooftops what you have done so that people can see it and then they can be inspired to be able to do the same too.
Yeah. Perfect. I love it. And so what drove you into your area of expertise right now? And I know that you've gone through different journeys, but if you could maybe explain the journey and the highlights.
Yes. So I've always had this interest in learning how the body works. I'm very
Mm,
intrigued with, you know, what happens inside our body and what is it that makes us, as a person, as a human. And so when I was growing up, I was very much drawn to the science subject. So I did, maths, double maths. I did physics and chemistry as well. And interestingly, I did actually do biology for my A levels. But then when I looked more into what is it that I really want to learn and want to help out with, I was actually really drawn to helping people live better with better health. And that's why I moved into the medical science area, because in that degree or whatever qualification I was looking for, I was going to be learning more about how the body works. And so that's how I got into, medical science as my undergrad degree. And then when I had the opportunity to do a couple of summer research projects in my second and third year of my undergrad degree. And that was actually in Canberra and at the ANU. And I was fascinated. I was actually fascinated by how the body works at a molecular level. So it's not just what you can see here, but more of what is it that's happening in the cell that allows the body to function the way it does. And that's how I got into epigenetics. So just studying the different type of layers of regulation of genes, because it's not just the DNA. There's actually additional layers that causes the gene to be switched on or off. And I guess, my interest in human health has always been there. Like I've always been interested in how the body works. And that sort of led me to where I am now in my current role, where I'm still, looking at human health. I'm working for the Department of Health and Aged Care. And, we look at how, how things work. And, from a how do you say, from a pharmacological perspective. Yeah. And so then, really there's all these things that sort of intertwines that kind of supports human health and well-being. And for me, I think, it's so important that a person has that health, so that then that physical health, and because that impacts emotional health and also impacts mental health. And so how can we then support the health and well-being of people so that they can then do the best work and be the best selves?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Genetics and epigenetics is something that's been a very close interest for me, actually. So I have a son with eczema and a few allergies. And apparently this is quite common with the children whose mum was born overseas, but the kids were born here. Have you observed something that is quite similar in terms of just a rise of allergies with kids that fit that demographics?
No, it's a good question. I don't think I can really answer that because I haven't actually looked into the research around that. Yeah, and I'd be curious for you to send through any evidence that you found there, because I haven't actually come across that. Although having said that, my children are the same. I'm from overseas and they're born here, but when they were growing up, they had eczema issues as well. So
yeah,
yeah. So it's
but they've outgrown it, have they?
They have. My son, yes, but my girls still have a little bit of skin issues, because I think they're on their way to getting out of it though. So but yeah, when they were a bit younger, definitely a little bit more skin problems. But now I think with their development, I think they're much better now.
Yeah, and it's season dependent as well. I find that it usually gets worse in winter,
Oh,
those
absolutely.
really dry days.
Yes.
I want to go back to your family, if you don't mind sharing. What's obviously you come from Malaysia, now you identify as an Australian, and now you have kids that are both. Between you and your husband, what has that transition been like?
Yeah, well, we wanted children, so we were very blessed with our firstborn, but it did mean quite a bit of changes, especially for me as a mom. I had to take maternity leave, and when you're working in a research career, they always say when you're taking maternity leave, it's a bit of a career suicide.
Do you think that's the truth?
Yes, in a way, yes. I think it sort of changes the perception of the people that you're working with as to whether how committed you are. And in a way, in the end, it's also my choice as well, right? Because I chose to take that time off, and I also chose to go back part-time. Because for me, what was important for me was my family time and me being with my children. So I took 2 maternity leaves, one with my firstborn, about 6 months, and I went back part-time. And then when I had my twins, I took a longer maternity leave because there were more work to do. We have 3 kids under 3. And yeah, I took 10 months off, and then I went back part-time again. Now, I mean, that was my choice, but I was very fortunate that my supervisor was a mom as well. And so she understood what was needed during those early years and how she can be supportive of my choices because she found it difficult for herself when she had young children. And so
Yep.
she wanted to make sure that she was able to give that support to her staff as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, it definitely impacted my career, my research career, and of course, you know, my husband's a very hands-on person as well. He's a hands-on dad, so he helps out a lot, and that would have, I guess, you know, he would have not spent as much time as work as maybe if he wanted to, but I think, you know, he loves spending time with our kids. So for him, that's his priority too, which is fantastic. And when both of us have that same priority, it means that when we make decisions as a family, it's so much easier because, you know, we know for both of us, this is important to us. And so we are going to put those times and make decisions, you know, that's based on that. So I think, you know, there's always going to be some level of sacrifice when you have children, and they can be a bit how do you say it's a lot of work. It is. And all parents they all face the same thing, you know, the children at different developmental stages. I think children's emotional, mental, and physical development can impact how they behave, and then we are there to support them and help them as much as possible. So yeah, and I think it's challenging, but but it's also still rewarding because I think the children would love to just spend time with you all the time if they could. And that's a testament of their love for you as a result of your love for them.
And was it hard, particularly for you to say that, okay, I've spent all this time with you and I love you and I love that you love me back, but now I've got to go away and do Giggly Wiggly for the weekend?
Yeah, it was tricky for sure, having to do that, especially when the kids were a bit younger. So Giggly Wiggly Balloons have been around for 5 years. So the kids were a little bit young when I started off the business. And given the type of person I am, I go all in as well. So I do spend quite a lot of time on my business. But I think what's important is also, I guess, having that quality interaction with the children and making sure that you set aside that time for them. So it's like they know that this is time with mommy, and as long as you keep to your promises with that, there'll be more understanding about all the other things that you have to do around that. And I mean, in some ways, you know, I do still make choices where I know that it would be good for me to do for my business. For example, going to a networking event. But they usually happen after work hours between 5 and 7:30, which is not possible for a mom with young children. For me, anyway, that's my choice. And so I don't go to these networking events because they don't fit in with, you know, me spending time with my family during that time. So it's just identifying what opportunities that you think is definitely that you have to take, and being able to get that support from my husband as well, because you know, for me it's important that, you know, whatever things that I say yes to, that they have to have a return. Given, you know, everyone has limited time on this place in Earth, and you really have to be very laser focused and be very clear about what is it that you say yes to, and also what you say no to as well. So had to learn how to exercise that no muscle very much. It's like, I'm not gonna just have to say no to this, no to this, no to this, and but yeah, this one, yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you said yes to this. It's interesting. You mentioned that everything that you said yes to needs to have a return. In your mind, what are those returns?
Oh, I guess it depends on the event. And
because I presume it's not always tangible. It could also be in other ways. So how do you define returns?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, it all ties back to my goals and I guess my vision for my family, my business, my life. And for example, I guess, like trying to think of examples. So for example, I guess the show, if you're thinking about if you were to touch about the TV show, the reality TV show that I did with Channel 7 called Blow Up. I guess for me, I was really keen to get on the show because firstly, you know, it's once in a lifetime thing, which you don't normally that doesn't normally come across very often.
Can you tell
And
us about the show actually? Like how did
yeah,
you
of
get
course, of
into
course.
it and how long did it go for?
Yeah. So the reality TV show Blow Up was a balloon competition between 10 balloon artists in Australia. And we had to go through an audition process in order to get onto the show. I was very fortunate that I was picked, and I was the only one from Canberra who was picked to go on the show. So the show, some people will say, is kind of like Lego Masters, but with balloons. So we have different challenges. For example, like we had a dinosaur challenge, we had a dress challenge, we had a challenge where we had to cover a car with balloons and you tell a story through that as well. So we had to do lots of different things, and they're all time bound as well. So like 8-hour challenges, 12-hour challenges, very
Wow.
challenges.
Straight 8 hours straight, or were you able to take breaks?
So I guess with the show, the way that we do it is, we have that time that we can do that we have the time set, and that's the time that we're given to do the challenges.
Okay.
So so yeah, so now it took about, I think we filmed for 5 weeks, so I was away for 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and during that time, my husband really had to step up and manage everything without me at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was an interesting time. It was fun, but it was also challenging as well.
How did you
Um,
negotiate that with your husband? Because I imagine it would have been quite tricky to have.
yeah, it was a tricky thing to have, because the thing is, I like, yeah, it was a long time to be away, but I guess yeah, and there were things that I guess we had to manage around publicity as well, because once I go on TV, then I'm a more of a public figure, and what are the sort of impacts that might have on us as a family,
Mm.
and also in terms of work as well, because yeah, so all these sort of things did come into play in our decision. But I think in the end, I'm still glad that I did it. But I know that I won't be able to do something similar again, because my daughter told me, Mommy, you cannot go away. You cannot go away for so long again. You have to stay home with us.
Okay. Well, you can. You just take her with you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's another way to do it. Yes.
Okay, so it went on for 5 weeks and then drum roll, you are the winner.
No, I didn't win. I wish I did.
Okay.
No, but I did get quite far. I got
Yeah.
to finals week. Just
Mm.
short of grand finals. Yeah. So spoiler alert for those who are about to watch it. But anyway, you can still catch it on 7 Plus on demand. So
Yeah.
if you're
Okay.
interested to watch Blow Up, yeah, go on to 7plus.com, .au. I think there's a .au at the end. And yeah, search for Blow Up, and we're still on TV, in that way anyway.
Yeah.
But it's they actually showed Blow Up Australia in New Zealand too. So they have Blow Up New Zealand, and then they loved it so much that they decided to show Blow Up Australia too in New Zealand.
Yeah. I love that you're so accomplished in your professional career and you're able to really harness that rational side of yours, but also you didn't let the creative side drop, right? You still pursue excellence in this area of your life.
Yeah, well, it's
How can you
interesting.
see this part of your life continue to evolve?
I mean, it's interesting what you said there about the creative part, because I only discovered balloon twisting 5 years ago. So I was probably creative in other ways, because I do play the piano, but not very much and not very often.
Okay.
But in this side of the more tangible creative side, I didn't think that I was actually that creative, but
Mm.
it's like you don't really know until you try it out, right? So and the reason why how I got into balloon twisting was because my pastor was looking for a balloon twister for a community church event. And no one put their hands up. And so I thought, oh, maybe I can give this a go and see, maybe I can help out. And so I got to Kmart, bought a pack of balloons, and then go on YouTube as you do when you want to learn something new, and looked up balloon dog and tried it out. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is actually quite fun. And then I decided to try a few different designs and like, oh my goodness, I think, I'm really enjoying this. And so I thought, oh, and I was looking for a business to start at that time as well. And oh, maybe I can do something with this. And without any, business experience or doing anything like this before, I decided to just jump in and just start Giggly Wiggly Balloons.
Yeah, I love it. Why were you looking to start a business, if you don't mind me asking? Because you're already accomplished as a professional. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a scientist.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And then I think, the turning point for that was after I went back to work after maternity leave with my twins, and my supervisor told me that she had to cut my working hours because there wasn't enough funding to, allow me to work more hours. And it was at that point in time that I realized that I do not have job security here and that my income is dependent on someone else. And so I realized that I needed to do something where I can bring in the income for myself. And so that's why I started, looking at business opportunities, what sort of business models that are available. How can I be bringing the income myself without having to depend on someone else? And so that was how I got started into business.
I love it. I love that you are never constrained by your surroundings. Back in Malaysia, you were not constricted by your parents' income or what they could afford for you. You went out there and looked for a scholarship that also offers, tuition and stipend. And now in your professional career, you're not bound by what your boss is telling you. You're still going out there to provide for yourself. Love it. Awesome. Okay, so you also have started Twisty Science. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so recently I've changed my business structure from a sole trader into a company. So Twisty Science is, I guess, I would say the mother company, if you want to call it. And then now Giggly Wiggly Balloons comes under Twisty Science. And I've also created a separate business called Twistific. So Twistific is it's kind of like Twisty Science, but in a different name, if that makes sense. So Twistific is a science education company where we create, science shows, science workshops, develop science parties, and also provide science career talks to help engage children in learning science. We have this issue of gender equity in STEM where women are less likely to be represented or promoted or, working in STEM. And this problem actually starts from when children are very young, when they're starting to develop their ideas of, what careers can I get into, who I want to be when I grow up. And it starts in the early primary school age. And so that's where we're trying to target. We're trying to make it fun for, boys and girls in particular, because there is that stereotyping of, girls not being good enough in science, not being good enough in maths and all those science subjects, and how they are, societally perceived to have to work in, that sort of thing. So we are trying to make it fun for them to see that, oh, as a girl, you can do anything you want, really, and you can do science. You can be anyone you want to be. You can be a lawyer, or if you want to be a builder, you can be a builder too. We're not restricting them to a specific career pathway that they have to be in. So what we're trying to do, is to showcase, improve that visibility and representation of girls doing science, and I think it's also important for the boys to be able to see that girls can do science too, because that's going to shape their perception as they're growing up, that and for them to be able to give that support to those women when they're working, that it's possible for you as well to do this.
How do you deliver it? Is it an in-person or is it more virtual?
So at the moment we are offering in-person show. So my main service is performing a science show, and I've done that the last 3 years during National Science Week. So in some ways, I've validated that, people are interested in such shows and they're getting value from it as well. And so that's sort of the main offering that we are providing right now. So I'm still developing the other services, like, science parties. I have a science workshop for high school students, but it's all still, work in progress.
Yeah.
And, I'm available for science career talks, but I'm hoping to develop a database of women in STEM who will be able to do that too next time in the future.
Yeah, perfect. Is there any specific age range that you think is the sweet spot to really introduce this concept?
It's a good question. I think it's never too young to introduce kids to science because firstly, when they are really young, they are actually quite curious and naturally curious, and you want to tap into that natural curiosity that they have. So, you have that age, that early age stage that is good to sort of tap into that natural curiosity. But then I think there's that age, between 8 to 12 or something, where they're starting to really develop their own thoughts and their own opinions on things, which would be also a good, I don't know, if you ask me the question, I'll just say anytime. Science is for everyone.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, I think, it's very important to continue learning and to continue to stay curious.
Yeah.
But, in terms of age, I would say primary school when you can, but sometimes people may miss out on that opportunity in primary school. Then we definitely need to reach out to students in high school as well. So I think, it's at any point there's I know that the drop off, if you want to call it, I can't remember, they call it the leaky pipeline, where people start to drop off their interest in science or drop off as people working in science as well. And it really starts from an early age, even from preschool and primary school. So the earlier we can stop that leaky pipeline, the better the outcome for the future generations.
Yeah, perfect. I was watching the Wiggles doco on the weekend, and it was quite interesting. Anthony, the Blue Wiggles, I think, he was the one who really drove the organization to really evolve into what it is now. But there was a snippet of the doco where Anthony's daughter was saying, "I didn't realize that Anthony was my dad, but sometimes I just wish that he could just be home and be my dad." And one of the reasons why I started this podcast is sometimes I feel that tug between wanting to go out there and try to pursue excellence in what I do versus staying at home, be home with the kids, be mom. Have you experienced that in your life as well? And what do you do, or what do you tell yourself when you go through that?
Well, I think as a parent, we always have to make some level of sacrifice in terms of either staying home, or for some people, even going out to work can cause that parental guilt. And I remember, I guess, I have a recent example of this actually. So, I was away, like I said before, for 5 weeks for the show. And when the show aired on TV and we finished watching the first episode, my daughter actually said to me, "So, Mommy, are balloons more important than family?"
That's like knife to your heart. Jab, 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 jab.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yes. So, we always have to make that choice, right? And every day we're making decisions about what we're going to be doing and how we're going to go about it.
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes we do have to be at peace with the decisions that we made. And, at that point in time, to me, that was the right decision for me. And I was aware of the impact that it would have on my family. And I know it's hard. It's hard when you come across this sort of situation. But I think there's also the opportunity to repair and to make up as well. And I think if you make it clear to your children what is it that's important to you and how they are important to you and how you're going to show that too, I think in the long run, if you've continually built that relationship of love and trust with your children, they're more likely to be understanding and to appreciate the work that you are doing.
Mm.
I mean, for me, the thing that my husband did say to me that I think was very important was, I won the Canberra Women in Business, Micro Business Woman Award last year. And when we went to the gala awards night together. And for me, I think when he saw, the fruit of my hard work resulting in something that allowed me to be recognized as someone with business excellence. To him, it's like, I'm being a role model for my children as well.
Yeah.
That, I'm doing all this work, but I'm also spending that time with them. And I'm also trying to, do all this and still show that love for them. So I think it's important to realize that, yeah, you have your children, you want to you provide for them as much as you can, but there's also that part of you, I know for me, where I need to be doing other things as well, which is my gifts and talents the best that I could. So I mean, it's an individual preference, individual choice. And I think what's important is being intentional about what it is that you want in your life and how you're going to approach that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. For me, whenever I have that tug, I would also go back to the values. And my values would be, I'm not just here for them now, but I'm also setting up that example, as you mentioned, the role modeling for when they're adults. I would think about, okay, if they're a grown-up, would I want them, especially I have a daughter, so when my daughter has grown, would I want her to be mum, or would I want her to also live her life to her fullest potential? And I would also go back to, no, yes, I'm here for you, but I also need to be at my best, because when I'm at my best, when I feel at my best, I can be a much better mum to you now, but also leave you that impression of being the role model that I hopefully they could aspire to later on when they're grown-ups. So yeah, thanks for sharing. It's always a constant struggle, isn't it? The guilt. You also were involved in the Undefeated book project. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So the Undefeated Book Project was initiated by Professional Migrant Women. It is a non-profit organization where they're trying to provide support for migrant women who are finding it hard to get jobs that they are actually qualified for. So there is a problem of, migrants coming into Australia where, they're probably highly skilled, they have specific qualifications, but yet when they come to Australia, they aren't able to get those high-skilled jobs. And perhaps they have to work, in a retail space or work in something that it's not what they're trained for. So Professional Migrant Women runs like workshops and excuse me, and runs like support groups for the community to help them skill up and also to help them get connected as well. Because I guess one of the challenges is that when you come to a foreign country, you may not necessarily know a lot of people, but this is an area where you can feel like, you're safe to be yourself. You're safe to share your challenges, because a lot of times we feel like we're struggling on our own, but in actual fact, we're not. There's actually people in similar situations like you, or, something, at least the emotions that we're going through will be the same. And so Undefeated is a book anthology of migrant women in Australia. So we've put together different stories, of people's experiences living in Australia, and the sort of potentially wins and also challenges that they might face as a person of color, a culturally diverse person living in Australia. So I think if I remember correctly, there's 118 stories by 90 migrant women in there. And I think the power in the book lies in its ability to generate empathy for the authors, and hopefully as a result for the migrant people living in Australia as well. Because unless those stories are being shared, people don't actually realize the sort of challenges that migrant women go through living in Australia. And so really it's an opportunity to see from a migrant's eyes, what is it like to live in Australia?
Yeah. All the sadness, the heartache, and the mental challenges, not just the professional challenges here, but all of the different layers. And I love that it takes in different forms of writing as well. Some of it is just a poem, some of it is a brief essay. How can people support and purchase an undefeated book?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can buy the Undefeated book on the Professional Migrant Women's website. They also have a podcast called Undefeated. So we actually delve further deeper into the stories of the authors. And so you get more of a flavor, I guess, of what went into the book.
Nice.
Yeah. So the
Okay.
Undefeated podcast.
Okay.
And yeah, understand more about the authors, what brought about their stories, and why was it important for them to share the story too.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Talking about books, you also have a book.
Yes. Yeah, so I have written a children's book called What Makes You Unique. So this is a book that introduces DNA to little children. It is targeted for the age between 4 to 8 years old. And the focus of the book really is to understand how is DNA like? What is it that makes us different and that lies in our DNA? And what happens when things go wrong with your DNA, and what can we do about it? So what I've done with my book is I've merged it with balloons. So I've used balloons to help illustrate some of the concepts of the DNA. And to merge that balloon and science together, and reading and books, all of my favorite things, and to create a science storytelling show, which I use to engage children and teach them about DNA. So that comes under Twistific, that science show. And that's
Yes.
really the show that I'm trying to promote and encourage people to join in and attend.
Yeah, perfect. So you currently have a lot on your plate. You have the government job, you have your business, you have your family, you have your husband. How are you juggling everything? You're also a church member,
Yes.
takes Sundays off. How are you juggling everything? Is there any specific ritual that you and your husband do on a weekly basis that will help you go through everything?
Yeah. I get that question a lot. I think but see, the thing is, not everything happens all at once. I think I will preface by that. Yeah, I think, people have talked about how, you can have everything, but you probably not have everything all at once. And that sort of applies to my life as well. So, so what I do is I tend to have certain blocks of time for different things. And usually there are non-negotiables, like your kids' activities, that's just going to take all those times there. You have non-negotiables like, time with family, and also regular date night with my husband as well. So those things are already set in the schedule. And then I sort of fit everything else around it. And I know when my working hours are, so it's making the most of the pockets of time that you have to do the things that you need to do. And for me, I guess, the Pareto principles apply here as well. So it's understanding what are the 20% of things that you need to do to move the 80%, to get the 80% results that you need. And that's why, we talked about saying yes and saying no. And that comes back into how I decide what goes into my calendar and what doesn't. So really it's and I mean, for me, it's very important that I have my physical calendar. I've got a big planner where I write everything in. And I also have my digital calendar. So things go onto my Google Calendar too. And the other thing that's important is, understanding that you can't do everything alone. Like you can't do everything on your own and by yourself. And so outsource where you can. So for example, grocery shopping, I don't do that anymore if I can help it. I just get it delivered, and it saves me so much time, money, and effort. The other thing is I'm also looking to find an assistant as well. So someone else that can help take the burden off me in terms of administrative tasks so that I can focus more on developing the business itself. So really understanding where can you get support from, getting your children involved in doing chores. They actually do their laundry. Like I say, this is your this is your job as part of helping out in the family. So the more you can outsource and delegate, the better, the easier it is for you.
Thank you so much for that. I want to go back to the young Chloe. I guess not the one who was embarking to go to your undergrad degree, not the one who was going to the the ANU, but the one who have decided that I'm not going to stay in Malaysia or Singapore. I'm going to go to Australia and find my path there. Knowing all of the wealth of wisdom that you know now, what one advice would you give that young Chloe?
Few different things, I think. But I think the main one, and the thing that is sometimes a bit of a struggle, that still crops up, is the limiting belief of I am not enough. And what I would say to my young Chloe is that you are enough, and you know enough. And if you don't know something, that's fine, because you are resourceful and you can find out the answers and you can learn how to be better at it. So, and that's a challenge that I guess I had to overcome quite a lot over my career as well, because I always felt like, I didn't know enough, that someone else was better than me. And I think that comparison trap, comparing yourselves to other people's successes and achievements, it's really something that I would say, please don't do that. It's not helpful at all. Because we have our own journey, and we create our own path. And it doesn't have to be a path, that's the same as someone else. I think it's a path that you create for yourself because it's the path that you are passionate about, and something that brings you joy, and something that taps into what you're good at as well. So it's really being confident in yourself and having that belief that you can achieve whatever it is that you set your mind to.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And one last question that I always ask a mom is, what's your alpha mom song?
Alpha mom song, interesting. I know that I have a really good favorite song. I don't know why. I think maybe because it's just catchy. It's called Rather Be by Clean Bandit. I think I think there was a feature as well. But yeah, Clean Bandit's Rather Be. I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's maybe the upbeat song that I'm like, okay, I need a bit of a pickup. I'm just gonna listen to this, and it just makes me feel better. So definitely that. Or sometimes if I need a bit of motivation in my business, I will listen to A Million Dreams, which came from the Greatest Showman movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it just talks about possibilities and how, this is what we could do in the future type of thing. So it helps me to remind myself what am I going for? And so I need to focus on what I need to do now so that I can move closer to where I want to be.
Perfect. Well, Dr. Chloe, thank you so much for being with us.
Now, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really hope your listeners enjoy the stories and insights, and I look forward to connecting with you in person actually in the future.
Yes, very much. I'd love that. Thank you. See you then.
Yeah.
This episode of The Breadwinning Mums was produced by me, Jane Lim, and our theme music was produced by Sam McNally. We recorded this episode on the lens of dark people who have passed their parenting story for generations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and thank them for caring for country. Connect with us through LinkedIn or Instagram at Breadwinning Mums. Until next time.